Hello guys, welcome back. In this video we will learn how to integrate web APIs in reactjs application using Axios. Axios is a very good promise based HTTP client that we will be using in this video, and it has a pretty much good weekly downloads, and it is under MIT license, and the size is very minimal in KBs, and it gives us all of the methods like get, post, delete that we will be using for the web APIs integration, and it has a good support for all of the browsers. So here is the command to install the package. So let's go ahead and install it. So meanwhile it is getting installed. For this application, the APIs that we will be using will be from the JSON placeholder, and they have given us few APIs like getting the post, getting a particular post, and getting comments under a post, and also similarly we can get these for the to-dos list and things like that. So we will be using this JSON placeholder APIs in our application. So the package is installed, so let's go ahead. Right now I have a blank reactjs project that is showing nothing here, so let's go ahead and import Axios from Axios, right? And before to use that, let's add few buttons on click of those buttons we will be triggering our functions that will be calling the web APIs. So let's add the button here. So maybe we can call request maybe get API, and let's add a function here as well. So on click of this button we will be invoking this function. So we can say make get API call, right? So we can say here on click it will be make get API call, right? And here what we can do is there are few ways that, for invoke the different APIs. We will discuss those one by one. So the first is Axios has a very common function that is called request, and in the request we can give a config here, and based on that config Axios will be making the API call. So in the config we can tell that what is the method that we'll be using. So let's start from the get method. Also there is a list of methods available, so head, link, options, patch, post, so all of these type of methods. So let's start from the get, and then we will be providing the URL on which the GET request will be made. So let's copy maybe the to-dos. Okay, so copy it, right? And it will be making a get request on this, and if there are any params we can provide, but right now there is no parameter for this one. So if suppose you have to provide the params, you can provide in this way, suppose foo with value of bar and something like that. So maybe here if suppose this accepts a parameter, suppose return all of the to-dos that have completed is equal to false, so we can provide here suppose completed whose value is false. So things like that, if you need to provide the params you can provide in this way, right? And this will return a promise, and in we can get the response in let's resolve the promise, and then we will be getting a response, and uh, let's save this response into our state, and we can for now we can render the response in a div maybe. So let's save the response in our state. So we can say API response. Initially it will be an empty object, so let's import it from React, right, use state, and here we can set that response, set API response to, and each of this response will have a few parameters. So it will give us all the data in the data prop, and also it will give us the headers if we need that. It can give us the status, so suppose what the status against this response. So maybe if it is a 200 it will be in then, and if it is suppose 500 or something 400 it will be in the catch, and status text if there anything returned from the server. So we can do all logic on that as well if needed. So for now let's set our response.data into an API response. It will be a JSON object, and here let's print it on the UI. So maybe in the div we can say that JSON.stringify the API response, right? And okay, let's save it. Here you go. So the button get request get API, and then we are here we are printing the response. So right now initially the response is, we have set the initial state to empty, so it is showing empty. So let's make the request. Here you go. It has, on click of the button, we call this function, and in this function we say that make a request with the get method and on this URL, and whatever is returned we are setting it to in this state, and here we are populating on the UI, right? And also the JSON placeholder also, if it is to dos it is returning all of the to dos, and if you give us some number here, maybe suppose 1, it will send a single to do with ID of 1, maybe this ID of 1, this one. So let's try it again. Here you go, with only 1, right? So let's keep this one to do at a time so that it does not clutter our UI. All right. So and if there is any suppose error, we can catch that an error, and maybe we can console it, or we can show to the user what is the error. And for now maybe you can set it in the same API response. So whatever it will be, maybe we can paste it in an error, or maybe simple error is also enough. So because we are stringifying here, right? Save it, and we will generate few errors later on, so we can show those here. So right now you see I'm clicking on that, but we are not if suppose this API takes too much time, maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, or maybe greater than that, so we can show a loading while the API is made, and then we can maybe hide that label. So for that let's add another state. Let's use state, so we can call it loading, and initially it will be false, and before making an API call we can set the loading, set loading to true, and in then and catch both we will be setting the loading to false, or there is another way we can set it in the finally, instead of setting loading to false in both then and catch, So in either case, whether it is successful or it was not successful, we will be showing whatever we received from the server, and then we will be hiding the loading finally, right? So let's edit here. So initially it is true, and once we are done with the API response, we are setting the loading to false, and here we can say that if the loading is true, then say loading, otherwise JSON-stringify, right? Let's save it, make the API call, loading, and there's data, loading data, right? This give us a good user experience, right? So similarly, by changing the method to post, delete, or anything else, we will be making the calls to that, and if that API asks for the parameters, we can pass in the params, and in case of post, we can pass the data as well in a data key. Also, because these methods are very common, so Axios has provided another way that you can, instead of using Axios.request, you can say something like Axios.get, and then we have to provide the URL and then the same config, right? So let's try this one as well. So let's provide the same URL, copy here, and it will be, let's comment out this one. So get, we do not need to pass the method here, because we are specifically saying that it is a get request, and we are passing only the URL, and after that we are using then and then catch and finally. So save it, refresh, loading, and same data, right? And there are some cases that we can even set the base URL. Suppose this one is the base URL till this. So after that, it is either a to-dos, it is let's go back, it's either a post, either these are commands, albums, photos, to-dos, and there is a base URL like this, and after that there is in space of to-dos, it will be post or it will be commands and things like that. So we can define the base URL. So we can define it in multiple ways. One is we can define it here. We can say base URL, and here if I do this one, cut it and paste it here. So base URL, it will be prepended here once this request is made. So let's comment out this one, right, and go back, refresh, doing the same, right? And if you are doing something like this, you can still set the base URL. You can say Axios dot defaults dot base URL is equal to this one, right? We have set the base URL, and then even we can comment out this line. It should work. Here you go. And even we comment out all of these and specify exactly the get function, and only say that this one, it should work, right? So either we can provide the base URL here, base URL we can provide here in each of these requests, or even we can pass here as well in the config. We can say the base URL to something, this one. So there are multiple ways to pass the base URL. Let's copy it here and paste it here, and this instead of this get. So base URL and then this one. Let's comment out this one and then refresh, Okay, 44. What happened? Oh, save it, refresh. Here you go. Right. So we can provide the base, the config anywhere on the main Axios, or in the request, or in the particular request, right? And of course we can also instead of using the Axios, we can create its instance, and in the instance we can say that this is the base URL, this is the timeout, this is all of the configs we can pass. So suppose we can say that const API is equal to Axios dot create, and here we can pass the config. Maybe we can say base URL, and let's copy it from here. So this is the base URL, and here instead of the Axios we can say that API dot get on to dos, no other params, save it. So here what we are doing is instead of using the Axios, we are using API, and API is the Axios dot create. We have provided the base URL, right? So let's save it, refresh. Here you go, loading, and then the same result, right? And in here we can also pass in different values, like we can say timeout. So let's add a timeout of 1 millisecond, refresh. So you see, so actually this time it went here, so there was an error that timeout of 1 millisecond exceeded, so it went to the catch or the error, right? So this is how we handle different type of errors. If there are error from the server side, we can handle it in the catch, and here we can even show to the user what is the error in different format. So right now we are only stringifying, but it's up to us what we need to do with this error, right? And this will be again a JSON, so we can show the message, what is the error, and even we can say what is the status code, and we will be getting the config and on which URL. So all of these information we will be getting in this error object as well, right? So in a similar way we have made the get API call. In the similar way we can make the post API calls. So let's add a function called make post API call, and in the let's, so in the similar way we can even use the Axios dot request, or maybe we can use Axios dot post, and also we can use this the instance we have created. So let's the way is similar we have used for the get. So let's use the API. So API dot post, so we will be providing the URL, the only this part, and then we can provide the data if there is any parameters that are required for this URL to work, and then we can provide the config. So config is again the same we have provided here, the base URL, timeout, and things like that. So maybe what is the data, if you have to provide any headers, we can provide even here or even here. So the precedence is such that it will first check in the default, so it will set to the default, and if we have whatever is added by the Axios, the default config, it will pick from there, and then it will merge whatever we have provided while creating the instance. So it will merge base URL and timeout with the other configs that have there in the Axios, and then it will go for each API. So if in the API we provide some config, then it will override the keys we have provided in the while creating the instance, and while the default keys the Axios has given. So the config provided in the in the API request will be at highest priority. It will override this one, and this will override the default config of Axios, right? And there are some cases that we have to provide, suppose the headers, and we can provide the headers here or here, and mostly we have to provide the authorization in the headers, and based on that we can provide whatever they have required in the headers. So like we can provide maybe auth or something, the variables, those are totally dependent on the server. So whatever they say we have to pass in header, we can pass it here, right? I will tell you one other way as well to do few things. I suppose before making an API call, if we want to do something, we can use the interceptors in that case. And if we have to do something before a response is reached to the UI, we can use the interceptors there as well. So if we want to modify the response, or if we want to modify the request, we can do that as well. So before that, let's make the this post request. So let's go there, and so here maybe on this URL post, and in the then there will be a response, and let's add the response to the state, and in the catch, same error, we can say set response error, and finally we will be doing the same, set loading false, and initially set loading to true, right? Save it, and let's add another button for requesting the post API. Make post API, save it, go back to the UI. So let's now hit post API, timeout, let's maybe 30 seconds, that will be 30,000. Yep, okay. So ID 101 is created. So making post request, that has created a new post. Although this is JSON placeholder is just the mock APIs, it will not actually create the data here, but those are just for mocking the responses. And here along with this we can pass the data. So suppose we can wanna say for the title, we can say my custom title, and we can say completed is false, right? So we can pass the data to the post API here. In reality, or when we will be integrating into our own servers, what it will be doing is it will be creating a post and with the title this one, and with the status of completed as false. Let's go back and refresh, loading, and then here you see. So actually what it is doing, it has mimicked the behavior that it has created a new post with ID of 101 with this data, title, my custom title, and completed is false. So here we see that whatever we have passed here, it reached to the JSON placeholder server, and then it responded back that I have added this information, right? So this is how you integrate the APIs, the get, post, and similarly we can integrate the delete. We will pass the URL and any data if there is required. We can integrate the put and patch, so we can integrate all of these accordingly. So the first parameter is mostly the URL, then for the get it is the params, and for the post it is the data that we send along with this post request, right? So here you see that we have set the loading to true here as well, and maybe there are multiple APIs. We will be doing the similar work on all of the APIs. So what if we wanna to make that common? So this type of things, if we need to do for all of the API requests, that we can do in the interceptors. So that will be API dot interceptors dot. So there are separate interceptors for the request and the response. So let's proceed for the request, and there's function for the use, and we have to provide this a function when it is on fulfilled. I mean, when it's on success, we will be creating a function, and on rejected or on error, we need to provide the function. So we can say function, and it will be giving us the config, and we will be returning the config as it is, and we can do whatever we want to do here additional to the whatever is in the config. Even we can update the config. Maybe we can say that config dot timeout is something, we can say 10,000, or I mean we can update anything from the config here as well, and also we can whatever we want to do additionally we can do. So like let's make it here. So suppose we want to say that set loading to true, so let's cut it from here and add it here, so that we have the access to the set loading. So suppose we can say that set loading to true, and in the error function we will be just returning, maybe we have to return a promise here, so we can say promise dot reject, that we were not able to create the request, or we can send here our customized functions, messages, or even we can whatever was error, we can transmit that back. So this was on the use when for the request, and let's copy it for the response, and instead of config it will be a response, and we will be returning the response here, and the error is the same, and here we will be setting the loading to false. Right, save it, and here let's remove the set loading these functions. So we will not be making setting the loading true false here. Instead, because we have set the loading to true whenever there is an API call, and when there is a response, we are setting the loading to false. So the common functionality is moved a little up. Right, and even we can customize the messages or the config here. So load, showing the loading. Oh, I think something wrong here. Request, oh sorry, instead of request we should say response. Save it, refresh, request, and here you go. Right, so request, loading, and response. So we have make this common, so we can do something here. If we want to change the config or do something before our request is made, we can do that here. And if we wanted to, maybe the response is here, if we wanted to manipulate the response in some manner, we can do the manipulations here, and after that we can run the updated response. So this is how we use the interceptors. Right, and there is one last thing that is also very important, that there are some cases that we have to cancel a request, so we can do that as well. So maybe let's create another button. We can say cancel request after some time, and we can do that. Create a function, maybe copy this one, and you can say make post AP call with cancel, right? So the things will be same. Make post AP call with cancel. It will be behaving the same as it is request post AP for now, and let's add a config here, right? And in config we can say that cancel token, and it will be new Axios dot cancel token, and let's give it a function, and it will give us a canceller, and here we can maybe let's declare a cancel here. You can say that let cancel is equal to null, and here once we receive the canceller, let's save that into the cancel we have declared above, this canceller, right? And let's cancel it immediately, and it will be going into the cache. So we can say cancel right away, cancel, and we can provide here the message we want to say why it was cancelled. So we can say cancel message will go here, save it. So get working fine, request post working fine, and so the cancel request loading. So our request is cancelled, but right now it's showing loading. So because when the request was not successful, in the error we are not hiding the loading. So let's do that here. So let's set loading to false, and also do that here as well, so in case of errors. Okay, so refresh, cancel, here you go, error message, cancel message will go here, whatever we have set in the cancel. So here we have cancelled it immediately, but in reality you will be cancelling maybe based on the event, or maybe based on the button click or something like that. Alright, so that's how we integrate the Axios in reactjs using different type of methods like get, post, delete, etc. And also we learned how to create the interceptors for the request and for the response, and how to alter the config for using different ways, using the Axios create and using different API requests. Alright, so that's it on learning the Axios in reactjs. Still, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and if you have learned something in the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Thank you.